inside the gold mine. Yeah, what? So today we're in the CD collection. We're going to go through my CDs I have by The Doors. Everybody knows The Doors. Everybody, when they're in like middle school or high school, gets into The Doors. And then a lot of people give up on The Doors. Some of us remain fans. And they obviously have a huge fan base. I mean, they're one of those major names in classic rock. They started, I guess, in the late '60s or so. And I, like I said, I got into them maybe in like seventh grade. I picked up on vinyl the Greatest Hits album that came out, and it was kind of tied into the renaissance of the Doors that was kind of pinned to that record and this book, No One Here Gets Out Alive, which I didn't read then. I read it years later. It's an interesting book. A lot of it's kind of fabricated and made up to kind of build the myth of Jim Morrison, obviously. But I've read a bunch of books. I read Ray Manzarek's book. I had that, but I sold it. I don't know, after I read it, I kind of didn't, I got rid of a lot of books back then. I also have this book, Break On Through, The Life and Death of Jim Morrison. It's a huge book. These are like the 90s when I really kind of was getting into like reading more about the Doors. This is John Densmore's book, Riders on the Storm. This is Wonderland Avenue. That's Doors related because Danny Sugarman, who was their manager in the later part of their career and sort of one of the ones who kind of created this kind of renaissance for the Doors in the 80s. This is a book about his kind of like autobiography. It's pretty interesting read. He led a pretty nutty life. But I never like really got into collecting Doors stuff. I did have the box set they put out in like when was that, like 97 or 98, something like that. I had that and but sold it years ago, like, which I kind of regret now. I wish I had kind of held on to that one, although it was good. There was like 4 CDs. 3 CDs had like unreleased stuff, some live stuff, stuff from the vaults. And then the 4th disc was kind of a waste because it was just kind of like the band picking their favorite songs from the studio albums, that was kind of a waste of a disc. And the Doors have like gone on to release like just unlimited amounts of vault recordings, live stuff, demos, whatever. There's just such a huge wealth of vault material out there that's been officially released if you're a Doors fan. And I don't have any of that stuff. The only other thing that I picked up was they put out like a box set of like the complete studio recordings, a CD box set that had all of them in like those kind of like mini LP cardboard CD cases, and then there was one additional disc called like I think it was called like the Essential Rarities or something, and just had some rare tracks and stuff like that on it. And I think it had like another one of those songs where they had like Jim Morrison's like poetry or something, and the remaining Doors put music to it or whatever. The only other thing that I got rid of as well, and we'll talk about why maybe I shouldn't have gotten rid of that in a minute. The only other thing that I do still have is this little hardcover book DVD thing called Revolution, which is just a little collection of some little, like, to DVD, it's like films, little short films and performances by the band. I think even, I want to say, like, I thought like Ray Manzarek's like student films were on here for some reason. Maybe they're not. I don't know, just kind of some like interesting little film clips. I still have this that was released. So on to the CDs that I have for them. First up, obviously, we have their debut, self-titled, The Doors, classic album. And now here's where we're going to get into it. These are the releases that came out in 2007, I believe, that Rhino and Elektra put out, and the Doors put out. These are like not remastered. These are remixes. They went in and they took all of the original recordings and they went back, I guess, to the tapes and completely just remixed the songs. And when these came out, I don't know that I really understood exactly what they were doing to these records. I just thought they were like new versions of the CDs with some bonus tracks on them. So I bought them to replace my original CDs that I had. So I bought these and I got rid of those original CDs I had. And then I bought like all these, and then I was listening to them and I realized like it's like listening to a completely different version of the album, and not in a good way. I'm really not a fan of the new mixes of these records. I haven't read too much up on them online, people's opinions, but I have a feeling a lot of people are not too crazy about them. And even recently, I've been thinking about like picking up the original versions again, because if I were going to listen to the Doors, I wouldn't put this on because I just don't like these new remixes. And what I have, luckily, like I said, I had that box set that they put out, the complete studio recordings, and before I gave that away to a friend of mine when I bought all these and just didn't think I needed all these copies of the same record. But I had those digitized into my iTunes, so those are what's still in my iTunes. So if I want to put something on my iPhone or listen to them, I can listen to those original versions. I don't have to put this in. But like, I don't know that I've ever grabbed these remixes and put them in to listen to, because I just really am not a fan of them. They just sound wrong. Like, you're listening, like, I want to hear Break On Through, and you put it in and you're listening to it, and it's weird to your ears to hear this. It's just kind of like, what, this isn't the song, so I'm not a big fan of these, but these are the ones I have currently. So this is their first album. Obviously everybody knows this: Light My Fire, Break On Through, Alabama Song, Crystal Ship, Soul Kitchen, and then they've got a couple of bonus tracks on here, a couple different versions of Moonlight Drive and a different version of Indian Summer, which would come later. And we've got Strange Days. And again, like I said, all these studio records are these remixes that came out in 2006 or 7. Strange Days is a really good record. Your Lost Little Girl, Love Me Two Times, People Are Strange. Bonus tracks on here are different version of People Are Strange with like studio dialogue and stuff, and different version of Love Me Two Times. And this isn't a double CD, but I just put it in a double CD thing to put this DVD copy I have of the Feast of Friends, little 40-minute like kind of documentary kind of film that the Doors put together, some of their friends made. I came across, I think like it might be officially released now, but when I made that DVD, it was like a bootleg that I found somewhere. Then we get Waiting for the Sun, another great record by the Doors, but not with these remixes. Hello, I Love You, Love Street, Not to Touch the Earth, The Unknown Soldier, We Could Be Good Together, 5 to 1. Some of the bonus tracks on here is, oh boy, that, I don't know how to pronounce it, the Albinoni's Adagio in G minor, which I think was on the that album the Doors put out in the late 70s. What's it? It's like just Jim Morrison poetry, and they put music to it. I think that comes from that. There's a couple of different versions of Not to Touch the Earth on here, and then Celebration of the Lizard, that big long 18-minute poem that Jim Morrison recorded, that I think was supposed to be on this record, but they ended up scrapping it. Then you get the Soft Parade, Tell All the People, Touch Me, Wild Child, Running Blue, Soft Parade obviously is on here. Bonus tracks: Who Scared You, Whiskey, Mystics, and Men, couple of different versions of that, a couple of different versions of Touch Me. Whoops, what was that? Oh, this is another, I guess I have more than I thought I did. This is a Live in Europe 1968 DVD that I must have made a copy of somewhere. But yeah, this is like kind of a polarizing record, I think, for some Doors fans. I think there are some people who weren't really crazy about this because they bring in a lot of horns and stuff in this album. But it's not bad. And then my favorite album, Morrison Hotel. This is, I love this album from start to finish. The Roadhouse Blues, Waiting for the Sun, You Make Me Real, Peace Frog, I love that song, Blue Sunday, Ship of Fools, Land Ho, great song, Queen of the Highway, Indian Summer, Maggie McGill. Really, really awesome record. Just love this one. This is the only one I have. Oh no, I have the greatest hits on vinyl, and I have this on vinyl. That's it though, vinyl wise. They have a bunch of different versions of Roadhouse Blues on here, and a couple other ones, different version of Peace Frog and stuff. Then their final studio record with the original band, LA Woman. And pretty good record. And this one, again, I put in a double thing because I have a bootleg copy of the Jim Morrison movie Highway that he made with his friends, or kind of never really finished, which is, you know, kind of for fans only. It's kind of a odd film. It's interesting, but kind of odd. Love Her Madly, LA Woman, Riders on the Storm, Crawling King Snake, Hyacinth House, bonus tracks, Orange County Suite, You Need Me, Don't Go Further. Orange County Suite, I think, was the, when I was talking about that complete studio recordings and the bonus disc, Essential Rarities or whatever it was called, I think Orange County Suite's the song that was like Jim Morrison recorded just the vocals, and then years in, you know, in the 90s or whatever, the band put music to. I think that's what that was. So that's it for their studio records. You know, Jim Morrison dies. The band tries to continue on without him as a trio. They put out 2 records that I've never really heard. I've heard like 1 or 2 songs from the 2 records. They weren't available on CD for a long, long time. And then I think they finally, you know, not that long ago, released them as like a double set, like both albums on 1 CD or something like that. But I don't have them. I've never listened to them. There one song that I was on the box set, I think it was called Tightrope Ride or something, that I think Ray Manzarek sings. That wasn't a bad song, but I've never heard anything really that great about those albums, so I've just never been that curious to check them out. And then I have Absolutely Live, which is an awesome live record by the band. You know, they've got a handful. I mean, there's tons of live material out there by them. This was released when they were still active, though, and really like this one. And then the only other CD I have by them, which sort of kind of gets everybody into the Doors and starts off their collection, is of course The Best of the Doors, a 2 CD set. This came originally in one of those fat CD cases, but I, you know, whittled it down to just a slimmer one so it's easier to store. But you know, this is, if you're just kind of getting into the Doors, or you just kind of you're not a big fan, you just like the hits, you can't really go wrong with this. I mean, the Doors are one of those bands like The Who, or you know, probably the Rolling Stones, like a lot of those classic rock bands. There was probably 40 different versions of the Doors, best of, greatest hits, whatever it's called. You know, so I mean, you know, this was like a real popular one for a long, long time. But like I said, there's been multiple versions of their greatest hits and best ofs released over the years. They're guilty of putting out way too many versions of their greatest hits and best ofs on CD. But you know, it's a good one to have if you just want to, you know, you're just kind of like a casual fan and want, you know, something for your collection, just to have their best of. So that's it for my CD collection of the Doors, and a little extra info there. Let me know what you think of the Doors, when you got into them. Was it middle school? Was it high school? Did you stick with them, or did you call it a day? after you moved on, got a little older. And yeah, be cool to hear from you. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you on another time later. I was gonna try to come up with use some other quote from Jim Morrison lyrics to end it, but I couldn't think of one, and that would be kind of corny, wouldn't it? I already was corny to be anyway. Oh, well. See you later.